there, I'm Amy Connell. Welcome to Graced Health, the podcast for women who want simple and grace-filled ways to take care of themselves and enjoy a little chocolate. I'm a certified personal trainer and nutrition coach who wants you to know your eating, movement, and body don't have to be perfect. You just need to be able to do what you're called to do. I am dropping this kind of unusual episode called State of the Podcast right as we have been celebrating 3 years of the Graced Health podcast. So if you have not listened to the episode entitled Simple Changes I have made from 3 years of podcasting guests or something like that, I don't have the title right in front of me, go back and listen to that. That's a really great one to just kind of get a recap and a sense of what types of episodes we will have. I get a lot of questions kind of about podcasting and the functionality of it and like how the Graced Health podcast is doing. So I just thought, I'm just going to come on and do this. People are really funny about numbers and downloads and all of that kind of stuff. It's sort of like, I'm just going to say it, like people are funny about sharing their weight. And that's a number, that carries a lot, right? But it's something that I have just gotten over because I'm like, I weigh what I weigh. It's the pull of my body toward Earth and it just doesn't matter. So PS, I haven't weighed myself like since April, but it's around 150. I don't really even know. Anyway, just since we're divulging numbers. But what I wanted to do is just kind of answer some questions. So this is not necessarily centered around these grace-filled conversations with spiritual, physical, and mental health. Okay, so if you are only wanting that, then this is not for you. And just wait until next Tuesday when a regular episode comes out. That's why it's a bonus. But I thought I would answer some of the questions on here that I get a lot from people. So the first question I get often is, how many followers or listeners do you have? The answer I give people is that's a really difficult number to pin down because there's just a lot of definitions with that kind of stuff. So I can share with you some of the numbers that are available to me through Apple Podcasts Connect, and I'm going to talk about that here in a second, and Buzzsprout. Buzzsprout is my hosting provider. So it is the place that I will submit my podcast, and then through RSS feeds, it sends it out. It sends it to Apple. It sends it to Spotify. I know some of you are listening on Podbean or Good Pods or Google, like all of that. So I send it to Buzzsprout and they do all of the work. So how many followers or listeners do I have? I don't know, but I can tell you this. Apple Podcasts Connect can provide me how many followers I have. And they tell me that I have 322 followers. Now, not all of the downloads are on Apple. In fact, about 60% of total downloads are on Apple and the others are on other various forms. So if I did the numbers earlier today, and I can't remember what it is, but I think that means it's like, if you want to extrapolate that, hello, finance degree, you are actually coming in handy. I think that's like 536 or something like that. But also, followers does not mean that everybody listens to every single one. I know I listen to shows and I see it come up and I'm like, is that interesting to me? Okay, yes, I'm going to listen. Is it not? Okay, I'm not going to listen. So, I don't expect people to listen to every single episode if they're a follower. Thank you if you do, but it's certainly not necessarily. So that is one level of measurement to use. And quite frankly, to answer that question specifically, I think it's probably the best one to be able to use. Another question I will hear is, well, how many downloads do you have? So downloads means that it has been downloaded from the Buzzsprout cloud to a device. So that might be your phone. It might be that if you have listened to an episode on my website, any of these, that counts. So over the last 3 years, I have had almost 43,000 downloads. Now, there are shows out there that probably have more than 43,000 downloads, like an episode. I mean, I'm thinking of those really big ones, Brene Brown. I don't even know how many she has, but Shirley, I mean, come on, she has a lot. Dax Shepard, like there are some really, really big named and big episode or big podcasts. I am what we call an indie. I am a one-man show when it comes to my podcast. I I do every single thing. And in fact, it takes me about 7 hours per episode to put out. This is a little bit of an exception. It's just my prep. I just prepped for this for probably 45 minutes, and then however long it takes for me to go through it and then uploading, because I'm not doing any show notes. I'm not going to really do any marketing on it. I'm just putting this out there. So over the last 3 years, almost 43,000. Now, if you go to, there is a website called Listen Notes, and you can put in a podcast and it will tell you where that ranks within the total downloads of all shows. So this is including those really, really big name ones with the big name podcasts and or the big name people who are hosting them. But according to Listen Notes, that the Graced Health podcast falls about in the top 5% of all podcasts. So that's pretty cool. And that's a great stat. I will say that probably includes a lot of the podcasts that are dormant, that maybe someone put out there and they're just sitting out there in space. So, I mean, it's kind of fun to be able to say that, but let's be honest, like there's probably a lot out there that just don't really do anything. They're not very active. What I thought was kind of interesting is if I went through year by year, I have had a pretty nice increase over the last 3 years. So year one, I had about 9,600 downloads. Year two was almost 15,000, which was a 50% increase. Again, finance degree, yay. And then year three was almost 18,000, which was a 22% increase. I'm rounding with those numbers. But it's been nice to see that increase. And I think that really goes to the lessons that I have learned from other people who have walked before me, that they say, just stay constant, just stay consistent, keep putting content out there, and your show will grow if it's good. So that's kind of where I am. I mean, I'm just putting content out there that I love because I'm learning so much from my guests, and I hope you are too. For the most part, with regard to downloads on the episode, the majority of downloads occur in the first 7 days of the episode release. So that's why one of the projects I have in 2023 is I really am trying to figure out how to market my back catalog. I have just such an incredible depth of knowledge from my guests that I don't want to be forgotten. I don't want it to be lost in the black hole. As of today and this episode, I will have 239 episodes published. And let's be honest, people aren't going to go back and listen to all 239 episodes. So I'm trying to figure out a good way to kind of keep that fresh. That will probably mean doing some more stuff on Pinterest, but we will just see. Okay, another question I get is, how do I start a podcast? So I'm going to be very, very simple with this one. And Buzzsprout, again, that hosting provider that I have, has a podcast called How to Start a Podcast. And anytime someone asks me, that is the very first place I go. They make it simple. They provide recommendations. They are not suggesting that you invest thousands of dollars in podcast equipment. I am still working off of the same microphone that I had, that I first got. I think it was less than $100 when I bought it. And there is some really good equipment that you can have that really doesn't cost a lot. As I speak, I have a pillow over to the side because I'm trying to absorb a little sound. So you can definitely get really, really scrappy. I did invest in an editing product or editing software called Hindenburg, which I love, and it was definitely worth the money. But you just don't have to have a lot to start a podcast. But go listen. If you are interested in starting a podcast, then I encourage you to start one. It's fun. I love it. But listen to Buzzsprout's podcast called How to Start a Podcast. People ask me sometimes, well, where are most of your listeners? Because I live in the Houston area, and it's like, well, is everybody listening here? Is it, where is it? So I will tell you that the Graced Health podcast has been downloaded in all 6 continents where people live. They don't measure Antarctica. and that's okay. Most of the listeners are in North America, 97%. And of the North American, most are in the United States, but we do have a strong showing from Canada. And I want to give a shout out to, I won't use your last name, but Deanne in Canada. She has just been such a strong and encouraging member of our Graced Health Community Facebook group. And so that just shout out to you, Deanne. Now, I do live in the Houston area, as many of you know. About 25% of the listens over the course of this podcast come from the Houston area. So that includes my suburb, the city of Houston, surrounding suburbs. And then for the most part, the other cities are all just very evenly distributed at like 1%. So it'll show a city that has many downloads and it's 1%. So I didn't count the number of cities, but it's lots and lots and lots. The one exception is Stillwater, Oklahoma. So shout out Stillwater. You guys are more like 2 to 3% of listeners. And depending on the time period that I look at, whether it's the last 7 episodes or 90 episodes or lifetime or whatever, but do have a little bit stronger showing in Stillwater, Oklahoma. The other thing is this does not include the small amount of views that I have on YouTube. So I have been trying to be more intentional about streaming the podcast episodes to YouTube, and it is just the raw cut with my guests. I don't edit it out as much as I do with the regular ones. And I don't edit strongly, but I just try and edit it so that it's a pleasurable experience for you. Like if someone is smacking their lips a lot, and I do this too, then I will edit that out or at least temper it out. So that doesn't include YouTube. And by the way, that is a really great place if it's a more recent episode, that if you have someone who doesn't listen to podcasts, but you want them to hear the content, you can go over to the YouTube channel and I will put this in the show notes and find it there and send it to them. So I actually have done that a couple times. Another question I get, are all of the guests Christian? So I make it very clear that this is a faith-based podcast. I am a Jesus follower. I've talked about that in several different episodes. So I'm going to get to the answer on that. As I talked about in the episode on the statement of values, which came out about a year ago, and I will link to that in the show notes as well, I choose guests for one of the 6 values of the show. And as a recap, the 6 values are knowledge, discernment, diversity, encouragement, faith, and grace, of course. So all of my guests bring at least one value and often more than one element to the show. Not all are Christians. I have a form that I ask my guests to complete when they come on, and I do have a couple questions related to faith. So one of them is, Graced Health is a faith-based podcast that seeks to equip women with simple and grace-filled ways to take care of themselves. Guests are invited and welcome regardless of their faith. Are you comfortable with being on a podcast that talks about Jesus, even if we don't in our conversation? And then everyone who's come on has said yes. And then I ask, would you like to share a meaningful Bible verse? Many say yes. Some say not at this time. That's okay, because I know that they are bringing some really fantastic information, despite that we may not have the same faith. And I am okay with that. If it's important to you to know if a guest is a believer or not, then in general, I think that you can use that as a litmus test. Did they share a meaningful Bible verse or did they not? But I just don't, it is not congruent with how I feel that we should love others and be with others to just say only Christian guests can come on this podcast. There are some that are like that, and I honor that and I respect it. That is not a decision that I have made for this show. So just want to be real clear about that. So are all the guests Christian? No, they're not. Do we still love them? Obviously, yes. Okay, here's another one I get. I'm trying really hard not to laugh. How much money do you make? Okay, so there is this big misperception that everyone makes money in podcasting because there are, again, big name people who make a lot of money in podcasting, and good for them. At its core, not only is there no money in podcasting, but hosting like Buzzsprout and any of the other podcast hosting providers, they cost money. So I spend money to podcast. Now, the money that I spend for Buzzsprout is worth every penny to me. And depending on how many minutes I upload every month, it kind of depends. I'm paying typically between like $18 and $26 a month for Buzzsprout. So it's not huge, but it is something. People can make money in podcasting through various ways. So one of those is sponsored, like this podcast is sponsored by. Some of them are ads. We've all heard ads. We've heard host-read ads. We've heard other ads that just come on that are other voices with other companies. You can be affiliates for things. And so that's like, hey, this is a product I really enjoy. I think you should get this, or I think it would add value to you, and you receive a portion of that. And I want to get back to affiliates here in just a second. And then there are self-promoted ads for products that you have. So this is when you hear me say, hey, go buy Your Worthy Body, my book, or I've got B.COMPLETE. That is kind of my way of attempting to make or help offset the cost of podcasting by sharing about the products that I have. When you purchase products like that, then that helps bring in some revenue. And so that helps with the cost of podcasting. But that's it. As far as affiliates go, people reach out to me all the time for affiliate marketing, either here on the show or even more frequently, like on Instagram. And I'm just, for the most part, not interested. At this time, on October 7th, 2022, I am an affiliate for 3 things. Number one is the Tighten Your Tinkler signature program, because I believe so wholeheartedly in the benefits. I just love supporting Jen Lorman and Christina Walsh, who are the Tighten Your Tinkler girls. I think I have used the program. It is helpful. And I think that this is something that we don't talk about enough. And so this is something that I believe in. And so, yes, I'm an affiliate for it. The other one that I'm an affiliate for is the Rooted In lotion, the magnesium lotion. Again, because I use this stuff every night. I'm putting it on my family members. I'm putting it on my friends. Like, it's wonderful. And I love it. So I don't mind. I don't feel like it is contrary to what I believe and where my values are to share a couple products that I really enjoy and receive a little bit of commission on it. The other thing I'm an affiliate for is I'm an Amazon associate, which is almost laughable how little money I get. I think in all of 2022, I've made like $21 or something. So whenever I will have like products that I recommend that's on Amazon, those are typically affiliate links. And then I receive a very, very, very small commission when you purchase that. So let's talk about ads really quickly. So like I said, there are different ways that you can have ads. I have never wanted to have any kind of outside advertising because, quite frankly, I've heard it's a lot of work. I just am not willing to put up a lot of time and effort and providing a lot of stats for not a whole lot of monetary time. Like, that's not worth my time. I'd rather spend an hour training someone because I can make more money training someone than figuring out how many downloads I have or something like that. However, Buzzsprout is now offering a really interesting way to have advertising on your show that I am going to experiment with, and I am going to try starting today. So what this does is it has ads of introduction. So this is all within the Buzzsprout bubble. And you can, if you are a podcast host, and most of the Buzzsprout hosts are independents like me. If you're a podcast host, you can pay to advertise, and then hosts can choose to have advertising. So it's kind of a two-way street, or it can be one if you want it. And basically, these are just ads of introduction. Hey, I'm Amy. I have the Grace Health podcast. We have grace-filled conversations about physical, mental, and spiritual health. So I will be advertising on other Buzzsprout shows. I like this method for two reasons. Number one is it supports other independent podcasters like myself. These are other people who are taking their time and money and resources and trying to provide valuable information to you in whatever topic they have. And as an independent podcaster, it's a tough gig. It's hard. So I like to be able to support other independent podcasters. Number two, I don't know about you, but I kind of get bored of the podcasts that I listen to sometimes, or I'll go in seasons. I'm like, I need a new podcast. And I think that this is how many of you are as well, because I'll see on my Facebook feed people saying, I need a new podcast to listen to. What should I listen to? So I think it gives, one of the things that I'm excited about is it gives you exposure to other podcasts that you might be interested in. I do have a level of filtration, so we're not going to have anything on here as best as I can. I will not have anything on there that is contrary to the values of this show. I do get to approve all of the ads. I will tell you right now, I'm going to do my best, but I can't go through and completely 100% vet everyone. I'm going to listen to their ad and decide, is this something that I think my community might enjoy? If it is, I'm going to allow it. And if it's not, then it's not. So that's where I am. I consider this an experiment. I'm not saying I'm going to do this forever and ever. If it works well, then great. And if it doesn't work well, then I won't. But I do feel like after 239 episodes, that this is the next right step for me. Now, am I going to get rich off of this? Oh no, that's laughable as well. So based on the download numbers right now, this should cover my Buzzsprout costs on a monthly basis, plus the cost of advertising. So like I said, I plan on advertising. So that's a cost. So that'll probably be about a wash. And then if I ever drop the advertising, then I'll have a little more to cover my recording platform, which is called Boomcaster. And I've been really happy with that. So I am not getting rich off of any of this at all, but it does allow me to take some advertising revenue and invest it into other ways to grow the business. If you are wondering, okay, well, I would love to support this show. I'm sure you're wondering, right? Like we all walk around going, how can I spend money to support someone? I know. But these are three ways that you can support the show. Number one, you can purchase my book, Your Worthy Body. It's on Amazon. Link is in the show notes. Or B.COMPLETE. I wholeheartedly believe in this program. B.COMPLETE is an online on-demand class of things that we kind of need to be doing as we're getting older from a fitness perspective, but we don't always take the time to do. So that's number one, purchase Your Worthy Body or B.COMPLETE. See, self-sponsored ads right here. That's what I'm doing. Number two, share this or share an episode that is meaningful to you with a specific friend. Hey, we were just talking about pelvic floor health, and I just heard this episode. I think you would like it. We were just saying that, you pee when you do jumping jacks. This might be a good one for you. Or, hey, I know you've got a kid going off to college soon. This one with Alyssa Costello was really good. So to me, the one-on-one recommendations are going to be more meaningful than anything else. Obviously, if you're just sharing on social media, thank you. I will always, always, always take that. But just sharing it sharing the show is super helpful. The other thing to do is to buy me a coffee, not a real coffee, but a virtual coffee. And that's just a monetary way of supporting the show. It's always appreciated. And I will leave the link in the show notes. I have been considering, since we're full disclosure on everything here, I have been considering doing a Patreon account, which would include in the monthly thing, it would include a free live B.COMPLETE class over Zoom, but I haven't quite figured out how to structure it. I haven't quite figured out how to make sure that this is valuable to you. So I haven't done that yet. There's a lot of things that I get in my head and I'm like, I want to do this, but it just kind of has to marinate for a while. And I guess I have a thick brain because things take a while to marinate. So that is the state of the podcast. And I just, once again, thank you for listening. I'm going to try and make this short. So that is all for today. Go out there and have a great day.